You did a good job for surviving your first indie week. It's a lot. Listen, man, I got the attitude of a trooper. I may be tired and I may whinge and groan about like, continuing to go or being called to rally, but fucking I get up. I get up, damn it. I'm not going to sit here and name drop a whole bunch of people because ultimately you're not going to know or care about most of it, but this was all crazy stuff for me. Flew in on Sunday, hung out with Nate and Heather and Ryan McKay, got some dim sum at a place called Dim Sum Sam's. Met with the folks at Pony Canyon. Some of y'all might know Pony Canyon. Went down by Madison Square Garden with a couple of dudes named Mike and Einer to a place called Loopy's Korean, which was fucking dope. I did not go to the LeBears Award, which is like indie music Grammys. Although Heather had to go because Sub Pop walked away with a statue, because of course they did. After Korean food, Nate and I thought we were done. We went home to the hotel. I was still tired from the flight and the cab ride and all that jazz. But Heather called and said rallied, so I put my chucks back on. I put my belt back on. We went out and met with all sorts of people from all sorts of different agencies and organizations. Probably the most exciting moment of that night for me was meeting a dude named Louis Posen, who's the founder of Hopeless Records. And a super nice dude. Thank y'all for the hype train. Appreciate it. That first night, man, I got back to the hotel and I was like, dude, it's 10 o'clock. I'm gonna go to bed so early. I'm gonna hit tomorrow on a line. And I literally had a weed gummy in my hand going towards my mouth. And then Nate goes, no, 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 no. Like I could feel the sugar crystals on my lips. And he was like, no, 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 no. Heather says we gotta go. And I was like, ha, 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 ha. Daddy want. Yeah, the founding fathers of the modern indie music industry. Okay, so Heather had to go to the bathroom and she hands me this like heavy fuck off statue. There was one of Sub Pop's statues from these award ceremonies. And everybody was there decompressing after the award ceremonies, but Nate and I didn't go to the award ceremony. So I'm sitting there holding this statue, standing completely by myself, and I see Nate talking to some people, and because I don't know who anybody in the room is for the most part, I walked over to these people and was just like, hey, I'd like to thank my community. It takes a village. I couldn't have possibly done this by myself. I'd like to thank my agent. I'd like to thank my family because they supported me. Like I was just giving the whole acceptance speech for holding one of these award trophies. And that bit went on for about as long as it should have. And then, yeah, of course, to break all the silence and awkward tension of people meeting each other, I was just like, yeah, let's crack some dick jokes. Fortunately, they thought it was funny, so. We met, we met Brits who were excited to be in the United States and to have an American drinking buddy. We met a Middle Eastern delegation for music that insisted that Nate and Heather and I needed to go to the Middle East at some point to visit and hang out. We'll see what happens there. And then we ate cheap, shitty Times Square pizza on the way back because we were tired. The next day, listen, this entire trip was a trip of crazy ass acronyms, chat. A2IM, AIMP, NMPA, RIAA, AIM, DMLC, BMI, ASCAP. Just acronyms on acronyms on acronyms on acronyms. So Heather and I split up and went to a summit up at Fordham University for the Association of Independent Music Publishers. I kept saying producers during the week, and Nate kept correcting me. And then while we were at that, Nate was doing hobnobbing at the Indie Week, which is the A2IM, A2IM being the American Association of Independent Music. So Nate went to the Indie Week thing, which is what we did most of the week, but Heather and I split off for the first part and went to first part of that day. I say the first part from like breakfast until dinner up at Fordham, just doing I grabbed a photo of it. People saying like, Yeah, Fordham was nice. People were saying like, oh, Taffy abandoned us to go party in New York.
This is the story of the newest denizen of the cave.
Meanwhile, in New York, Heather's standing next to me. We didn't even get seats for this one. You went to the simp meeting. It's AIMP, but yes, I could see how people would think that that said the simp meeting. This dude was really cool. This dude's a lobbyist for indie music folks up on Capitol Hill, and is a super game nerd. We may have convinced him. This is Tom Cleese, and we may. It looks like I'm just like petting him. We may have convinced him to go to PAX West, and we may have convinced him to go to MagFest. I told him, I was like, MagFest is awesome. I was like, MagFest is awesome. It's the music and gaming festival. I was like, you can meet all the people who have worked and been influential in music OST creation, but to get to them, you have to push past 9 furries and 5 shadow hearts. And he was just like, yo, that sounds like my speed. And I was like, yo, you're a freak, and I fucking love it. Get on my team, music lawyer who's a secret freak. So yeah, that was that day. Yeah, Sam Hollander was the keynote speaker. The dude who wrote Boys Like Girls. He was really great. Like, he was very entertaining. And then on that day, we went home and ate Champion Pizza. It was fine. Oh, we went out to Brooklyn to a place called The Little Pig. It was great. The Sub Pop crew had us out there. Sub Pop being the music label that discovered Nirvana, little known band you may have heard of from my youth. All the Sub Pop people were fucking awesome. That's where I really met the Brits. Dude named Tristan and a dude named Johnny.
Denizen of the cave.
Dude named Tristan and a dude named Johnny that just decided that Nate and I were their American drinking buddies. I have like 6 WhatsApp messages from those guys being like, hey man, it's lunchtime, Guinness? And I was like, fuck me, dudes. Like, my fucking liver can't take this. What was the best meal of the week? A lot of the food was utilitarian, but there were two very different meals that were definitely at the top, and I will happily stop and show those to you. I did not get to do a lot of food tourism. A lot of like at the AIMP thing, Heather and I had like rubbery chicken and like shitty salad, because it was just convention food. You know what I mean? Like, we grabbed shitty Times Square pizza on the way back to the hotel at one point because it was 2 in the morning and we were hungry, and it was either that or 7-Eleven. Oh yeah, the next day, chat, the next day, I went to go get my badge and stuff. I went to go get my badge, and I told Nate, I was like, I don't know what to wear. I was like, screw it. I'm gonna go in making a statement. So I put on my Punch Nazi shirt with a pair of like nice shorts. They're almost like business slacks, except they're shorts with my Chucks. Nate and I are sitting there talking to somebody that I don't really know who it is. And then another gentleman walks up and says, my executive shorts. That's correct. That's my business shorts. This gentleman walks up, shakes my hand, and I was just like, I feel like he was pointed at several times by Nate and Heather. This person feels important. And he walks up to me and shakes my hand and goes, that's a nice shirt. And I looked down and I was like, oh, right. Yeah, no. I wore this and figured if anybody had a problem with my Punch Nazi shirt that I'd like to know about it before rather than later. And he says, what did he say? He said something to the effect of, I want a companion shirt called Punch Cops. And I was just like, yeah, when you find that one, you let me know and I'll put it in my wardrobe. And it turns out it's just Richard Burgess, the current president of A2IM and Titan, like I guess is the best way to say it, Titan of the indie music industry. Been in the industry for probably 50 years now. That's true. Richard is the person who coined the term EDM. And I had a whole ass conversation with him about my shirt saying Punch Nazis, which is how I got to meet him. And went, president and CEO of A2IM. And when when I got to talk to him, it was just like, yo, so Punch Nazis? And he's like, hell yeah. And I was like, you fucking rule. I'm in. That shirt was the gift that kept on giving, man. New York hates Nazis. I fucking loved it. Yeah, Richard was great, man. I fucking dug Richard. He had some, for like he's what 75? He's 75 now. I hope though I'm 75. I've got that kind of fucking spunk. I hope that I've still got that kind of fire at 75. So arguably the most famous person at this entire convention, a big fan of punching Nazis, and he singled me out of this crowd because he was just like, I like your shirt. And I was just like, yeah, fuck him, fuck him. Drinks with people, drinks with people, drinks with people. Went to another tavern and got drinks with the Brits, but also had drinks with Daniel Turcotte, who's the new president of Monster Cat, which is a wild turn of events for us, is that we suddenly are very chummy with Monster Cat. Oh, that's right, Paul Pacifico. Dude was the CEO of AIM for a hot minute. AIM is like A2IM, but in the UK. He was deliciously British, old Paul Pacifico. I'm trying real hard not to get too deep in the weeds here. We went to a cocktail party up in some fucking rooftop Skylark lounge. It was crazy. Where I was once again told I was going to be forced at gunpoint to visit the Middle East and have a wonderful time doing it. And then we had a lovely dinner at a place called Kavacha. Let me see if I can bring it up. This was a really good meal. Like I feel like I'm burying the lead on this one, but this one was an excellent meal. Yeah, the guacamole was delightful. I think I ended up getting the Chipotle shrimp tacos, and these were really, really good. Like I convinced myself I wasn't even hungry, and I wrecked these things. Had a couple of delicious margaritas. And this is right up by Central Park, so by the time we were done, we just walked the 20 blocks back to the hotel just for some like fresh air and exercise. That was a beautiful night out. And I got stopped about 20 times by people being like, yo, fuck Nazis. And I was like, goddamn right. What kind of trip was this? I was at a music conference called A2IM Indie Week or New York City Indie Week, where I spent the entire week up there mattering more than it felt like I should at this thing. Yeah, that's right. My title apparently now is the Chief Nazi Punching Officer. The next day was a breakfast that I did not stay at for very long because frankly I got there, ate some eggs and bacon, and then had to go poop, so I ran back to the hotel. Nate and I fumbled around the lobby, went to a place called Hand Pulled Noodles, which was actually really good. Yeah, we went to this place called Hand Pulled Noodle. And we got wontons and soup dumplings, and I got like a chive, like a chive noodle, like a chive and pork noodle. It was really good. It was affordable too. It was almost like a Chipotle. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, that's more or less what I got. We got some dumplings and we got some wontons. Yeah, this place was good. It was really good. It was fat. Like I said, it was fast too. It was like a Chipotle situation. That's basically what I got. That was awesome. Yeah, I was gonna say next time I'd love to fit in a little more food tourism. I just like I have to drive home to this audience in particular. The food tourism was not the point. Was not the point. Um, yeah, I met and talked with people from Spotify. Met and talked with people from Trolley. Met and talked with Dan from Monster Cat again. And then the night before, when we were walking back from Kovacha, I don't know if you guys know Sebastian Wolf, the CEO of Materia, but Sebastian's fucking great, and he's been a friend of ours since back when Pretzel first started. Noah and I met him when we were canvassing MagFest so hard that like Noah puked at the end of the weekend because we went from fucking sun up till sundown 150%. I was kicked out of a quiet room because I fell asleep and started snoring. Noah puked at the end of the weekend because he was so tired. So we met Sebastian then. Sebastian intercepted us on the walk back from Kovacha the night before and was just like, yo, Taffy, you're a musical theater guy. And I was like, true. He goes, you want to go see Hamilton with me tomorrow? I turned to Nate and Heather like a child and was just like, Mom, Dad, can I go? Can I go? And Nate was like, buddy, we've got a meeting scheduled with our accountant tomorrow. She's coming in specifically just to talk to us from outside the city. I was like, what? Mom, Dad, Hamilton. So Sebastian, in his infinite fucking generosity, pings us later and goes, I just bought enough tickets for all of us. So we took our accountant to Hamilton. Like that, we fucking took our accountant to Hamilton. There we go. That was our seat, which was pretty cool. It was very good. Surprise, surprise. Yeah, it was. I was like, again, and Sebastian wouldn't take any money for he wouldn't take money for much of anything. After that was over, we went to a place called Fushimi and got like a bunch of sake and some sushi. And I have to tell this story real quick. There were these two old women. One was 80 and one was probably 90. And they were on these bar stools up at the bar. And we're sitting there eating sushi and drinking sake. And I see a purse fall down. It was the best sake I've ever had in my life. I've always had sake that's tasted like vanilla-y, but I've never had sake that had like a distinctive fruit flavor to it. And this had like a very distinct like pear and honeysuckle flavor to it. I've never like crushed sake before, but I fucking crushed this sake. Yeah, Sebastian was like a sugar daddy this weekend. So we were crushing the sake and we were crushing the sushi and talking shop. And I see these two really old women up at the bar. And I see one of them drop a purse. And I'm about to get up to go help them get the purse when I shit you not, off of like 3.5 foot tall bar stools, chat, this 170 years worth of old woman both fall. Imagine two bar stools. Now imagine you're fucking Nona on a bar stool and just going like that. So Nate and Sebastian and I spring into action and get these two incredibly old women off the floor. Thankfully, nothing seems to be wounded but their pride. Nate later on did crack the joke that they must have come from Wicked because they were trying to defy gravity, which I thought was pretty funny. They end up getting up, paying their bill. They leave, and we're like, holy shit, we're so lucky that one of them wasn't seriously hurt, because they were, like, the youngest one was 80. They leave, we finish our food and drink, we get up to leave, we go outside. I step outside and look down, and the first thing I see, I shit you not, is like a tennis shoe footprint size amount of blood pooled up on the street. Like, I was walking out with my head down and just saw blood and was like, what the fuck? And my eyes train up, and it is the older of the two women with 3 New York police officers around her with blood just streaming out of the back of her head. And as best I can tell, because we kind of took off at that point. Like, we were just like, we don't want to have to file a fucking statement. The best I can tell is that they got outside and she missed the step on the curb and went and fucking just smacked the shit out of her head on the asphalt. And so there were a couple of like concerned citizens that we kind of handed it off to, because they were like, I came out and I was like, oh my God, we can't leave you guys alone for a second. And the 80-year-old was still like cracking wise, but the 90-year-old was like clearly hurt and tired. Like she got the shit kicked out of her all because she wanted a cocktail. And the concerned citizens were just like, are you their family? And we're like, no. They ate shit in there too, and we saw it in there. It was wild. It like that shit was crazy. The sushi was good, and the sake was fucking exceptional. From there, at the invitation of Stephen Hill of Warp Records, we went out to Brooklyn and went to the Warp offices. If you want any idea of how this trip had gone at this point, this is me in my executive shorts with my little bit of a tummy hanging out here. I slept like that for like 2 hours. But this was what the end of the week felt like. A little taffy tummy time. I was so tired and so hungover the entire week. But the warp offices were cool. The people were obviously very cool. Brooklyn, I love visiting Brooklyn. Brooklyn reminds me of Philly. Like colonial row houses, mom and pop shops, not as many tourists. It's very nice. We had really nice tacos from a place called Ramirez. I got pastor. They had a trompo, so you knew it was going to be fire. They had a trompo, and they had
of the newest denizen of the cave.
In-house. They had in-house salsas. In-house made salsas. Yeah, Taquiera Ramirez was fucking excellent. It was very good. Yeah, it was not my fucking Grammy. That shit was not my responsibility. I was out. So yeah, we had a meeting with YouTube. We had some stuff we were hoping to get set in motion and some stuff we were hoping to iron out. I got Pastor, Longaniza, and I got Tripa. I wish the Tripa had been a little crispier. The flavor was awesome. The texture was a little almost gooey, almost like beef, like marrow. It's soft, you know what I mean? Like it didn't give up a bunch of like chew. But I wish it had a little more char on the meat. If it had a little like crunch on the edges, I'd have been super happy. The texture was a little the flavor was great. The longaniza was great and the pastor was amazing. So but yeah, Taquiera Ramirez was fucking exceptional. We drank a couple bottles of wine at the Brooklyn Winery and kind of decompressed a little bit. And then was the fucking weird one of the trip. Was we ended up in the Mandarin Lounge. And then we got moved over to a table next to the window so that we could see Central Park. And this was an absurdly pricey dinner, including a tin of Osetra caviar. This was a thing we were invited to, not a thing that we like chose of our own volition. But this was the fanciest meal of the trip. Somebody said, like, what was the best meal? This was the fanciest meal, for sure. This is some, like... I kept expecting to see fucking Miles Morales or fucking Peter Parker come around this corner. And then I wanted to see whether or not Miles and Peter struggled with Central Park the way I struggled with Central Park as Spider-Man. So... this was the most bougie meal, and it wasn't even close. The Mandarin Oriental Lounge. Yeah, it was good. We got super drunk off of cocktails and off of dessert wine. We had 2 bottles of dessert wine. Oh, no shit. The Mandarin is where Alenia's New York City cocktail bar used to be. That's right, we don't fuck with the majors. I think Ryan McKay went and talked to the majors, but we didn't. Rusty Brazenfire gave me money because I said I refused to eat bagels outside of New York because Squint Fox ruined me. We couldn't go too terribly far out of the way for bagels, so these were from a place called Broadnosh. And they were excellent. They were very good. This is the 42nd Street location. I think the ones that Squint Fox brought me were a little bit better. But these were, again, head and shoulders better than any other bagel that I could have outside of the city. Lox, red onion, dill. This was a salt bagel, and then this was like an onion sesame bagel. Heather and I went halvesies like a little married couple. That was fucking awesome. You glossed right over the fact that you tried to fight a dude with a Punisher shirt, the air, and the bike on the way back to the hotel. I don't remember the walk back. I don't remember genuinely, Heather, I don't remember how we got back to the hotel. Did I try to fight a guy with a Punisher shirt on? I don't won. Fuck that bitch. This was the best meal. This was the best meal of the trip. The next day, we had a little bit of time before we had to get on flights. So we went down to John's of Bleecker and got one of the more iconic pizzas. They also sat us up in a booth that was right in the window and separated out from everybody. That was the Meat Lovers. And then just the John's original cheese down here. And we managed to truck both of these with the exception of a couple slices. We got a fried sampler platter. So this is cheese sticks, zucchini fries, and arancini with a really nice house-made marinara. They put us up in this booth in the corner. It was so cool. John's a Bleecker. It was surprisingly like cozy, the little nook we were in. So yeah. Widely considered, oh, there's the cheese. That's their original slice. Very thin, very crispy, dark undercarriage, char, a little bit of char on the outside. There's a reason that this pizza gives Dave Portnoy a hard on, as this is right in his wheelhouse. But that was my last meal. It was so good that I toyed with taking the last couple of slices of pizza on the plane with me, but Dave Portnoy can eat me for lots of reasons, but mostly because he blew up my local slice joint and it went from a 2-minute wait to a 20-minute wait, and I'll never forgive him. Yeah, I got a feeling that Dave Portnoy and I do not share a single political view. But I do appreciate what he does for mom and pop businesses. And the fact that he's a hardcore Swiftie. Anyway. And then I got back late Saturday night. And I spent yesterday kind of recovering and rehydrating. And now I'm here.